The 21st century elephant is basically how do you dance with baby elephants? It's kind of a little joke, but one step at a time. All right, you gotta relate to these kids. The modern kid. When I grew up, a lot of us grew up. Education was different. You were gonna learn. You were lectured to. The modern kid is a different animal. We all know that. You guys are here from all over the nation. I don't know who those kids are. They don't know who they are. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know what the expectations were. And I really like this Pixin cartoon here that I made. And this was our new principal. It was one of his theories, and that's we're all educators. We think school's cool. We love it. It's like a beautiful Sunday barbecue. It's fun to learn. But for a kid who's never been successful, education is a sunburn. It's a third-degree burn. That kid doesn't feel like they're at the barbecue. They feel like they're the fish. And that's something we have to remember. So, I was watching with my wife, Mary Poppins, the other day. And really, instead of doing this presentation, you pretty much show Mary Poppins, and that's how you should teach kids. And that's saving Mr. Johnson. I just wrote that there. I realize that kids want to have fun, but they can learn by playing. They want us to have their backs. They already know they struggle. They struggled since they were in first grade. They already know that they think they suck. So you're not teaching them anything by throwing S at them, throwing BRS at them. You have to show them success because that's something they don't. So kids who hate reading. We have I always do this beginning of the year. I ask my kids, how many of you hate reading? Every single kid raises their hand. At the end of the year, I always say, how many of you love reading? Every kid raises their hand. And that's the key. I'm passionate about this. Excuse me if I'm quiet for a moment. You gotta know what kids are good at and acknowledge that. You can just read stuff up there. I went to I'm a basketball coach too, and I went to a clinic, and Jerry Krause was saying every great coach is an excellent teacher. I would say every excellent teacher is a good coach.
One of the secrets that Eric demonstrates constantly is his passion. Well, he got kids into the passion of reading. When they saw success, they would then pick up a science book, a social studies book. They would read it, and they would get something out of it because he showed them it was okay to know and struggle with this, but you have the tools, you can do this. It was amazing what started to happen through the transformation of the entire school. Because what was going on is when we exited a kid, that kid would come in, and because the teachers weren't teaching to a program anymore, they were teaching to an outcome, that kid could flip right into that class and then show them the skills they already had. And the teachers were saying, oh, that's great, you can do this. Fine, welcome. Because when it's the reverse, you missed the first 4 Civil War episodes, I guess you're out of it, you can't take the test. What? Give me a break. I want to learn about why there was a civil war. I don't care about the battles.
Yeah, it all comes down to, again, I can't say enough, show them success. This is just a quick slide. Read interesting things, I always threaten them with a literature book that sits out there. If we can read the literature book, if you guys don't want to do this, oh, no, we want to do this. And I actually like the literature book. It's really, every time I do make them read it, we enjoy it because literature is actually really good. We try to go out there and find really good fun stuff. Last year we read The Hobbit. And, these kids have never read a big book like that. That's intimidating to a 7th grade. They can't read. But we use closed reading and other strategies. And it was cool.
And the software programs.
Yeah, and so one of the big things that we're going to talk about, one of the big elephants was we were getting 45 of our 150 6th graders illiterate. When I mean illiterate, I mean high risk. They weren't fluent readers. 45, that's like that 1/3 of the kids coming in pretty much couldn't read. So, I only got 18 seats. So what were these other 30 at-risk kids that aren't really ready to be in a gen ed class? We had a big issue. One thing we did do is we invested in Read 180, and we opened up 2 classes for that. That allowed us to create 30 seats. to deal with this wave of sixth graders. Because as I started looking at data and I got access to elementary data, I started seeing it wasn't going to end. Okay, it was a tsunami. It was 3 years of kids going to be coming in. So I looked at fourth grade, I looked at fifth grade, and I looked at third grade, and I was like, OMG, they're coming here. There's a no. So we put this in place, and that really helped. It allowed us basically to work as a mill. We had to mill these kids and bring them up to as many up to standard as possible. So by the time we got to seventh grade, I was just going over the stats because we had to do a schoolwork presentation. We'd start with like 45 at-risk sixth graders, and then we'd get about 26 seventh graders, and get knocked down to about 12 or 18 eighth graders. And then you were talking about a lot of those kids are resource room kids, sped kids, life skills kids. So you're still working and building that, but you've really tackled this huge thing. That was a huge element. It's like, what is going on in the elementary school? You know, and then their high school is going to be asking us, why are you sending us a bunch of, we had sixth graders that were reading, lots of sixth graders that were reading at a first and second grade level. They couldn't read Go.Go. Just one of my favorite books, by the way. So Edmodo is another program, which we'll touch on in a bit, but we should move on from here. Read 180 is awesome. It's differentiated instruction. If you don't know about it, might be something to investigate. I'm sure they've got some gig out here in the
and the piece of that was that 90-minute intervention. Well, everybody said, wow, Dr. C, how are we going to work a 90-minute intervention? I said, it's time. Work time. Well, now we got to change all the calendars and we got to change all the schedules. In the first 2 years, and Eric's one of them, he would always go, what's the deal with all these new schedules? I said, we haven't found one yet. What are you worried about? I operate the bells. I'll get you the time, but we're going to figure out how to put all these things together. Within 2 years, we finally came. It took us 15 schedules. We finally got it. And we finally found it. But I would change the schedule within 2 weeks. It was an elephant. Why? I was going to make that thing dance. I don't care. We were having a good time with it. I hated the machine that made me change all the bells, but other than that, it was just a very fun process to go with the staff. And Eric could come in and go, I need 90 minutes. That's all I need.
I was primarily bothered with it. I think we had like 7 different schedules, and of course, not the person who designs our bell system, which is like 50 years old. Not the person 50 years old, the system's 50 years old.
Yeah, I'm old.
Yeah, but anyway, so it'd be like halfway through the period, and you'd be looking and ding, the kids all go, no, that's the bell schedule's messed up. Or we're on this schedule. This is Edmodo here. I don't know. I'm kind of curious. Give me a quick comment after. How many of you have used Edmodo or seen Edmodo? Edmodo's cool. Okay. The more you get into it, the more you learn what it can do. It's ridiculous, and it's free, which just blows my mind. This really. When I was exposed to this at our ESD district office, they just did a short little thing on it, and I used to print out the papers, and I always do it when I went to college because I was a high school dropout. When I first went there, I wrote a paper, and Miss Simonson gave it back, and the front page was just red, like it had been hemorrhaging, and she put a note on and said that I'm only edited the first page. And she said, you really need to learn how to spell and punctuate and write, basically. But she said, you have an incredible voice. And this is an A paper. She gave me an A. I've written like 5 books since. So, the reason I get worked up about that is because it changed my life. And I know I can do it with kids, and you can do it with kids if you show them success. You've got to show them the errors are made, but you've got to say, hey, there's something really good in here. You got talent, and they believe it. And you know what's weird? It works. We flipped our writing just flipped. And we're going to look at right now. 36% of the kids met standard when they came in. One out of every 3 kids was that. And the average in our writing is 12 as a high score, 9 is standard. None of the kids that were in the at-risk group scored higher than 9. So of the 36 that met standard, they just touched it.
We got to go back to 30%, 36% of the entire school met the standard.
Yeah.
We had tier 1 kids that were identified, these are our success kids. They couldn't write. We went, whoa, that elephant's going to kill us. It's going to walk all over us. That's going to be a bird coming through fast. He found the reading problem, and we found the writing problem. And then, because I have a writer on staff, he says, we got to fix this. We got to fix it fast.
So again, that just shows a graph there. You just look at the next one. We did our MSP came back this year. 72% of those same kids passed. Of the 28% that didn't pass, they had moved up 2 points, so like 25%. So we completely flipped our data and had the highest writing scores last year in our entire county, which we had the lowest like 4 years ago. So you really have to appreciate the invention, and we'll go into that in just a second.
Yeah, and then the piece of that is that we were competing against schools like in Vancouver, Alki, which is a very, very, very good school, and it writes at the 80% or 90% area all the time. This was a growth piece. We had this major growth change. And the reason it happened is we started to learn school-wide writing techniques that then became RPD. So year 3, everything became writing. How are we going to change everybody's writing skills? And he was working, and his team was working on the tier 1, tier 2 kids all the time. But we as a school were working on the entire population because we had to find out that they could all write. And it's a very simple elephant to get to dance. It really is. It's just an expectation. And who has the expectation? The staff. And how do they get it? We teach them. Teachers that didn't know how to write. It's frustrating. So you just had to sit them down and say, this is how you will write.
Yeah, we made a model for the Gen Ed, and we had a staff meeting that basically, this is basically how you get text-based details, and this is, we expect, and all in math, in science, in PE, and they do. And so it was, you're not going to change your school in one classroom. You have to find ways to translate success in your classroom out of the school. So that's the key. Is where are you successful? How can you translate that? This is a classic R book from the Read 180. This kid's actually an excellent writer now. But kid, you're not gonna. I have terrible handwriting. I can't read my own handwriting. Right? I could have written that. This kid's never been a good writer. Why? There's no joy, no creativity, hates to write, horrible penmanship. You're not going to change a 6th grader's penmanship. Once you get to a certain age, that's got to be the way you write. But by using Edmodo, you can see now there's like 6 drafts right here. So I was able to work with this kid and give them real feedback. A kid will write a paper on Edmodo, it'll show up on my desk. I can annotate it. Usually I'll bring them over because I want to show them what we're looking at. But sometimes if we're doing a lot of stuff, they'll send them, maybe we'll take 6 revisions. I tell you right now, that kid takes 2 revisions now. All right, so as they get success, as they feel successful, and as they learn, it's weird, but a lot of it, so much of it, is that interior belief of how they see themselves as a human being and as a student. They've never had a successful relationship with school. So you have to foster that. And this just goes, this is us showing the first draft. You can see all the annotations that I've made using Edmodo. Just a couple clicks, and it really helped the student go over that. Final draft, beautiful paper. So progress monitoring is a really big issue, and I think a lot of you are probably tackling that. Where are your kids? Are you a benchmark? How do you translate those scores into your state standard scores? So that's what we're going to look at next. And we use Easy CBM. I know there's a lot of other stuff out there. This is a sample kid. You can see she started with a 14 score. That's a real score, and you can see how far. I don't know what, I guess I did a screen snapshot. Didn't show the last data point, but that's a pretty good rate of improvement, going from the red is high risk, yellow some risk, and the gray, which she's heading straight towards, would be the standard benchmark.
And what we were doing, here's where we made a shift. And this was a design from the Title I staff, which at that moment in time in my staff was 3 people. Eric, the lead. Then we decided I need more resources as a principal. I needed to have more resources to get involved. So I applied to the state of Washington to become a Title I school because I wanted all those resources for every teacher. And as I did that, my elephant of dancing on resources went away. Because now I could use those resources to train everybody to the system, or to train everybody on, all my PDs started to come through those resources. I'm not saying that's what you should do, but if that's an elephant that you're starting to get involved in, you can become a Title I school. And there are benefits. And there are other elephants that up here. The jungle doesn't go away. You're audited more. They just like coming in. Especially if you've been a struggling school. So it was a key for us that when we started to see these rope lines of the kids that he was focusing on and his team was focusing on, we wanted to know it for every kid, even if you were in Tier 1.
And this is like why it's so important to get data points. I mean, if you were to look at the second data point of 124, the goal for this kid is, I think, 140 words a minute. So if you were looking at a couple of data points, you would say, okay, this kid's not getting it. But if you look at a series of data points, progress monitoring, you can, this kid's actually doing really good. And you can, if you in a classroom, I'd be like, oh yeah, that was a day that I know that there was a problem between two parents, for example, and a custody thing, and the kid was having a real bad, you know. But if you look at the overall model, that kid's gone all the way up to 168, 123. This is this year, so this is one of our Title I kids this fall. So from beginning of school year 9-2 at 123, he's up to 160. He's at benchmark now, really. So this kid is exited, and another kid's in that spot. So again, we're talking about that goal. As soon as you reach standards, as soon as we know we've got your skill set to where you need to be, we get you out to open the seat back up. And it's all about having that data. Because right, this is a big. I talked about the elementary issue. This is an elephant. Some of you can just click it again. Don't leave fish to find fish. I'm from the Northwest, where we actually have water and rain, and fish and salmon. Anyway, so I was with a guy, and he was like always telling me people will like leave a fishing hole to go find a better fishing hole. You don't do that. You don't leave fish to find fish. Put it in there. And you don't take kids out of reading to teach them reading. I called the elementary school, and I talked to my counterpart. I said, what are you guys doing down there? Because we just have waves of kids coming in. Oh, no, we're doing RTI. We're doing pull-outs. We take the kid, and I said, what class do you take them out? We take them out of language arts. You take them out of band, take them out of PE. I said, wait a minute, you have an hour in language arts. Yeah, they go down the hallway. They sit down. They do a 30-minute reading intervention. They come back to their class, and they catch up. So the kid sits down, kind of gets the beginning of the lesson. Somebody comes in. So now they're wearing the scarlet letter, right? They get up in front of their peers, get walked out. They walk back. They probably 20 minutes of instructional time. They come back in, feel like a knucklehead. They sit down, and they don't even know where that. Now they're behind in their gen ed reading class. And I was like, are you serious? And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, we take them out of PE, we take them out of band. I said, you can't take them out of band. Like, yeah. A kid that doesn't graduate, a kid that can't read is 6 times less likely to graduate. A kid that doesn't graduate is 68 times more likely to be incarcerated. Yeah, we'll take them out. I'd rather have the kid not be a rock star than be in jail. So,
that was the biggest elephant. That was
huge.
another elephant because the faculty hit us.
Smart.
And guess who? Fine arts. You take it away. I said, we'll find a way for them to practice their instrument. We'll find them a way to do their art. We will find that, but it's not going to be during our 6.5 hours.
but the cool thing of that too is I just gave up on that person, and I just called the district office and said, okay, this is what's going on. You know, I'm not a tattletale or a narc. We're talking about kids here, all right? So, and he was like, seriously? I'm like, yeah, seriously, you should know this. And he's a smart guy. But anyway, so they completely revamped that system. And I can tell you right now, it's so nice because the data now shows that elementary school has become almost exemplary. So in the last 4 years, we still have, like, this was like our last high tide of low kids. But we finally reached through to them. Now they're running a proper rank order intervention system at the elementary level, and it's really just changed everything. So I'm really excited about that. This was a big elephant too. You guys have standardized tests. It's a big deal. We always say, well, I don't teach to the test. Well, this one again. A lot of kids lack basic testing skills with hard vocabulary. We found when we were doing these screens, a lot of at-risk readers, they don't know what writer's inference means. They don't know what main ideas. They don't know what a caption is. So how can you expect them to sit down and take a standardized test and do well on it when they don't even know what those things, you know, it says, oh, be in trouble. they weren't even getting to the questions on the tests because they didn't know what their vocabulary was. So we realized that we need to create a boot camp for at-risk readers and at-risk math kids to teach them the skills. So what we did was we took only kids that they weren't in Title I, they were Tier 2 kids. You can see the MSP scores, none of them had passed. If they had passed, they had a 400. And so they weren't in SPED and they weren't in Title, so these were just kids that weren't getting any extra services. We gave them 10, 25-minute standardized boot camp questions. And we made a game format. We taught them just how to break down questions. We taught them key vocabulary, caption, map, signal statements, target words, how to isolate no-brainers, small things like that. And the red herring, which is my favorite, you know that question that almost looks like it's right, and it's meant to screen out 33.7% of all kids. That, the kids need to know that. And we did this with these 40 kids, and the next slide here. This shows on the left, you see 2012, 70% of those kids didn't reach standard, and 30%, they were at standard, 400, so they were one question away from not reaching standard. The next year, that same group, 70% of that group of kids passed standard. Some of them with incredible increases in scores, and the 30% that didn't moved up from Tier 1 to Tier 2. So they actually moved up a whole 20, 30 mark. I think we have that next slide right there. So a small little thing, but if we didn't take that aggressive step, if we didn't identify that elephant, that really changed our school. That blue line is standard 400. You can see 2013, and that's our 6th grade average, 21-point increase. So again, small little steps, identifying your elephants, prioritizing can make a huge change in your classroom.
And we need to add to that, when we did that, we had to make sure it was happening again. I keep emphasizing this because this is my part of the job. I had to make sure every teacher was doing it in every group. We just couldn't say, Eric and Teen, you do that. We'll be okay. Nuh-uh. When they had an outcome-based educational program, instructional environment in their room, they were doing these types of, some people call it, teach to the test. We weren't teaching them to the test, we were showing them how the vocabulary tests work. So design your outcome assessments in the same way. Teach them how to work through this thing that's going to be in front of them all the way through college. They had the skills, they had the knowledge,